Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny Committee. The first item on the agenda for tonight is the appointment of the chair. So could I please ask for nominations for the position of chair for the committee? Do we have any?
Can I nominate Tom Mahoney, please?
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations?
Yeah.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Tom Mahoney as chair?
Yes, I'll second.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that.
And can just confirm there are no further nominations? In that case, I appoint Councillor Tom Mahoney as chair of the committee. If you would like to take the chair, Councillor Mahoney.
Thank you, Lynn. I'd like to ask for nominations, please, for the position of vice chair. And from the chair, I'd like to nominate Councillor Gillias. Can I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Chair.
Are there any other nominations? In that case, Councillor Gillias is vice chair of this committee. I'd like to remind all members that we are live streamed and that in order that everything goes off smoothly, I ask that you all keep your cameras off unless you're speaking, as well as your mics. If you wish to speak, can you raise your hands in a normal way to indicate that you wish to speak? Also, we're not going to be using the chat facility. Right, moving on. Are there any apologies?
I think, Chair, we have apologies for Councillor Mrs. New for tonight.
Yeah, Councillor Nora New.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Right, declarations of interest. To receive declarations of A, non-pecuniary interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors. None received. B, pecuniary interest as defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for councillors. And C, notice under Section 106 Local Government Finance Acts 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax. Again, no indications. Moving on to the first agenda item, which is the work programme. Now, I think I've spoken to a few of you quite already on this. What my hope is for us to achieve at this meeting is to go through the agenda items from the previous two scrutiny committees and prioritise the ones that we're taking forward. The only ones I would see that we could be dealing with straight away and be setting up task groups for are those who are urgent and have to be dealt with in the next 6 months. Bearing in mind that the council will be going through a recovery programme shortly after, well, within the next 6 months, and we're to leave resources and capability for that. So, but beyond that, it's up to the committee to decide what items are taken forward. Lynn, can you run through the programme for us, please?
Would you like me to go through the list appended to the report, Tom?
Yeah, the ones that are left over. I mean, I don't think we've got anything at the moment that's forward that, except on the first page, the notices of motions that we'll discuss later. But if we can go through the legacy items first, clear those out of the way, and that will give us space then to see where we're going to put the new items on. If that all makes sense to you? Yeah. Okay. So we're looking at what's been left originally allocated or carried forward from the Communities and Resources and Environmental and Growth Committees. Lynn.
Right, so looking at Appendix 1 to the report, I'll just go through them one by one. So under Corporate Resources, you had an item to discuss performance and future strategy in the Communities and Resources portfolio. which would have involved the portfolio holder coming to one of your meetings. And the same for communities and homes would have been for a portfolio holder to come along and discuss performance and future strategy.
Yeah, I think, Lynn, we could take that page as read, because those are standard items that's going to be coming through on the work programme. I think what I'd like to do is to look at the legacy items to see where they fit into the work programme, those that have been finished and those that need to be urgently looked at, and those can wait till later on in the year. So that page you was reading off are standard items that are in the work programme, and they'll be fitted into the meetings as and when they come up.
Okay.
And I think, looking at it, most of those can be dealt with this committee. What I'm worried about, I wouldn't say worried about, it's the wrong word, but what I would like to address first is, do we have to set up immediately any task and finish groups to deal with any legacy items? And that's down to this committee to decide, not for me to decide. Is that clear?
So you've got the review of housing voids, which was meant to be a light touch review to focus on tenancy termination, to relet, landlord checks and contract conditions. Is that something the committee want to take forward?
I'll open it up to the committee. What's your feelings on this one? I've got Councillor Gilliard. So Councillor Roodhouse first, please.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at how things have been going, I know it's been difficult with COVID and the rest of it, but a light touch review on the voids performance is, I know, been ongoing for some time. So I think it would be worthwhile having a look at the voids and how they're operating at the moment, going forward as well.
Would you see that as something that we can do as a committee, or would you like to see that go to a task and finish group?
I think we could do it as a committee, and if there was something that came out of that the officers wanted to present to say needed further review, it could then allocate that to a small task and finish group to do it in a set time.
All right. Thank you. Tony.
Yes, Chair. It was just we're looking at this tenancy thing as regarding all tenanted properties, are we, or just council-owned properties?
I would assume it's council-owned properties.
Right. It's because certainly in the private sector, there's a lot of issues at the moment, where new tenancy is taking place. There's a lot of upgrading works have to be done in a certain time scale, which means that a number of properties are actually empty for a longer period than they should be. So it's something maybe we should look at.
I think we looked at that sort of thing, to be honest, under working with partners. So I think that would be a separate item altogether, to be honest, Tony.
That's okay.
That's partnership working, because that's working with housing associations and what pressure, I won't say pressure, but how we can cooperate with them so that they give an equal service. Right, is that the only one that anybody's concerned about, is the review of housing and voids? Or Rugby Lotto, the progress report, obviously I don't think that's come through. Sorry, Peter.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just a quick question. The scope of some of these things would be quite interesting to know. Obviously, as that discussion went on, the scope became fairly clear on that one. But it'd be if we could get a one-line scope on what these issues were and what they were actually out to achieve, I think that'd be quite useful.
Right. How I see things panning out and how this committee will work, well, these first two meetings is tonight we agree on what topics we're taking forward. The next meeting is where we do the scoping of those topics. So we clear the decks tonight, then we start our new work programme at the next meeting. Is that all right with everybody? Anybody?
Yeah, sorry, Tom. I was actually interested in the outstanding ones, the ones you're talking about now, what the scope for those was, for those of us who haven't worked on those, or if they were from a different scrutiny committee, that's all.
Well, I didn't work on them all. I don't think many of us around the table did. Lynn would know where they stand, but let me try and phrase this as best I can with my limited vocabulary. The way I see the future of all the committees at Rugby Borough Council at the moment is we're going through a tremendous period of change. We've already changed the way scrutiny is working, but bringing that in, we're hoping to bring flexibility. Also, the country's going through an awful lot of change, and none of us knows what's going to happen next week. So I want to leave resources and capability for this committee to pick up anything that comes up at short notice so we can look at it. So whilst I'm not dismissing what's been left behind, I'm trying to prioritise what we can put on the work programme, not bed down task and finish groups looking at subjects where we're may have to, and I'm not saying we will, but possibly have to abandon to look at something more urgent. So if the work's already been done or it's already been reported to Cabinet or to Council, then we could put it to one side. If it's not urgent, i.e. doesn't need to be come to a conclusion in the next 6 months, I'll be more comfortable leaving that until the middle of next year before we take that up, to leave us that breathing space to take on what life's going to throw at us for the next 3 or 4 months. If you disagree with that, I'd like you to raise your hands now and let me know, but that's the way I see us going forward. I've got one disagreement. No, that's gone. So we're all in agreement with Eric. Well, bearing that in mind, can you look at the list that we've got in front of us, see what's urgent, what we deem as urgent? I'm not saying we'll abandon anything, but anything that we need to be carried forward, look at us taking it up in about 4 months, 6 months' time. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I think looking at the environment and growth subjects, because that's the one I was serving on, I think the one that stands out, or the two that stand out to me that do need looking at, are review of litter and review of fly tipping, because we know over the last few months both of those issues have increased substantially. So I think we do need to make sure that's picked up.
Yeah, I think those two have been picked up by the Cabinet working parties.
Okay, well, if we're happy for that to happen, then that's fine.
Yeah, well, I don't think we want any duplication. Jerry.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. It says the review of litter, review of fly tipping, both by Cabinet working parties. I mean, some of these are just reports, really, and whether briefing or whatever could be just circulated to update us. You know, a lot of it was progress or brought stuff. The self-build plots, I didn't know whether that ought to go into the asset working group because of the work they're doing on land and the issues as well. There was that. And the review on waste and recycling, are the Cabinet working groups picking that up, or is that just going to be handled separately?
Thinking about that. Yeah, somebody's got a live mic. Right. So my understanding is that the consensus is that most of these can be dealt with the reports. Sorry, Lynn, then Tony, or do you want to do it the other way around? Sorry, I'll have Tony first, then Lynn.
Yeah, Councillor Picker did mention the issue regarding fly tipping, and that is meant to be picked up by working party, Cabinet working party, when in February time. But it would be interesting to note the reports I get and the things that I see around the borough, and I do probably something in the region of between 8,000 and 10,000 miles driving just in and around the borough of Rugby each year. I see a lot of evidence of serious fly tipping, and that has a real bearing on people's mental attitudes and their well-being. So, addressing this situation adequately would have, a real pick-me-up for those folks that absolutely totally insulted by the amount of fly tipping that goes on. So it would be nice to have some sort of an action working party that will come up with some real ways of dealing with this once and for all.
There is no reason why we can't ask the Cabinet Working Party to send us a copy of the report before it's finalised. I don't see an issue with that at all. Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to agree with Councillor Roodhouse. If you want some sort of briefing paper incorporating all the progress reports and updates, that could all be dealt with in one way, and then you could take that out of your forward work programme, that you just have a progress update report. And also with the fly tipping, yes, if it's going to a working party, you can certainly ask for an updated report on the progress or look at what outcomes they've come up with at a later date.
Yep. Jerry?
Yeah, I was just looking the waste and recycling. I do note there's a waste management review working party, which was initially set up to do with the recycling centres and all these wonderful things. And that hasn't met for some time, but if we've got a standing committee which is looking at waste management review working party, perhaps they should be doing that and looking at the recycling levels and the rest of it, and then doing a report and then sending that back to us to have a look at it before it goes anywhere else, because I know they haven't met for some time, so we might as well make use of it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's the same with the air quality monitoring. We've got a climate change working party, I believe, and I think that can go there. It's not leaving us an awful lot left to do, really. Review of attendance policy, most of them are just reports that we can deal with at the next meeting. Then I'm hoping that the Executive Director would have come up with some topics that she may want us to look at to enable us to go forward with the recovery programme for the borough. Would you like to comment on that, please, Manny?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I did have my hand raised, so just listening.
Sorry, I didn't notice it. Yeah.
That's okay. Just listening to what members have said on the call so far, if it's okay with you all, what I'd propose is if officers come back to the next meeting with an update against all of those scrutiny items, with either confirmation of whether in the context of what the organisation is operating in right now, whether those items make sense for us to accelerate work on those, both from a capacity perspective, and also from a value perspective, because obviously the scrutiny would want to focus on work that adds value to what is going on right now. I think also officers can indicate alternative working groups, just like Councillor Roodhouse has suggested, for a couple of items, including the Asset Management Members Working Group, and for members of this group then at the next meeting to confirm or otherwise whether they're happy for those alternative groups to pick those pieces of work up. And then really, if you're moving into the next part of the agenda in terms of focusing on recovery, we can also then give you a steer of current items that would be useful for this scrutiny to give consideration to support the council's recovery programme. I'm happy to get feedback on that. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Manny. That's virtually how I'll try to explain it at the beginning, how we're going forward. I'm sorry, I wasn't very clear on it. But yeah, at the moment, we're a bit in the dark of what the future plans or the future direction for the borough is. So it's hard for us to make plans. Julie, do you want to come in, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Looking at that list that we have in Appendix 1, I think for me the standout item is the health and wellbeing initiatives. I can't remember back that far what the initiatives were that were identified at that point, and I agree totally with Manny and what she's just said, that it's something that we do need to look at, but we need to look at it where we are now and the problems that we are in at the present time and whether we do have capacity. But yes, for me, the health and well-being of our residents would be the standout item.
Well, thank you. Right, my understanding is, and I'm hoping you're going to all agree to this, is that we, at the next meeting, we get the finalised reports on these topics. We finalise which ones are going to the working parties that are already in place. Hopefully by then we'll have a steer from the officers on what items they would like us to look at. And then from that, we'll incorporate with those with the standing items that are in the appendix. Except, I think that all of those, yeah, they're just mostly reports. From that, hopefully, we should be able to set up at least one or two. I see a maximum of 3 working task and finish groups running at any one time. Not to say it's just 3 for the year, but as one finishes, we can start another one up. Is everybody in agreement with that? And did it make sense to you all? Manny first and then Jerry, please.
Thank you, Chair. So just to clarify, we'll bring a synopsis against each of those items for the next meeting as opposed to an update report in itself. I'm just conscious that obviously officer capacity needs to focus on the current emergency situation in hand as opposed to producing an update report, but hopefully a synopsis will be sufficient to enable this group to make a decision on whether it wishes to include or prioritise any of those topics as part of its work programme for next year. I think in terms of the general work programme, something this committee might want to give consideration to, and what you've just said, Chair, does make sense in the context of task and finish groups, is as the report outlines, there's 4 pillars for recovery that the report details, and this group could give consideration to what it considers to be priority areas under each of those topics. So just like Councillor Barrow has focused on health and communities, that does fit in the context of our 4 proposed priority areas for recovery and the Council's strategy moving forward. So this group would perhaps would want to give consideration to what does it consider to be those key priorities, key objectives under each of those 4 overarching themes to focus on as part of the Council's recovery process.
Right, Jerry?
Yeah, I was about to touch on those 4 pillars in paragraph 2.1 and health and communities and recovery with COVID, and what Councillor Barrow touched upon, I think, will be a crucial area to look at. And in the paragraph 2.2, the review topics, not for the next few meetings, but certainly going forward beyond that, I think there does need to be a way of involving more elected members, parish councils and the public in how they can also choose particular subjects for scrutiny, but that's for something in the future. It does mention a number of review topics have been received since the beginning of the year, and they're going to be reviewed by the Chair and Vice Chair and placed in priority order, and they'll be in the work programme for the next meeting. So if you could just make a clear description as to what they are, that would be extremely useful for that next meeting. Yeah,
the aim of this, the new way of working is flexibility. So there is no cut-off dates for topics to come forward. So it's going to be a rolling programme. We can have some items by law have got to be on there, and they're the only ones fixed. But beyond that, we'll be assessing it as we go along. So that's why I don't want to overcommit ourselves too early and not leave capacity to pick things up later on. One of the things we've asked for in pre-meetings is that there be more cooperation between this committee and the executive, so we get sight of what they're planning before they put them into action. So we've got the chance to, I wouldn't say look for fault, but to cast an eye over it to see if there's anything that may be missed. So that is going to be part of the work programme as well. I'm also conscious that things change very rapidly at the moment, and what we may think is going to happen next week, in a lot of cases, doesn't happen because the world just changes that quickly at the moment. So I want that flexibility to be there. But I don't make decisions. I want to be focused on you, the members of the committee. I'm just here to guide you along, but it's your decision on how it runs, and I'm hoping that you'll go along the way that I envisage it. But if you don't, it's still your committee, if that makes sense. No dissenters. Right. Well, if we're all clear on what we're doing, next meeting, we'll have a synopsis of all the items that are left over from the last two committees, and we will finalise which ones are priority and which ones we consider to be closed. We shall also be looking at the 4 pillars, and as we've already said, health and well-being may be a topic that we want to look at deeper, but there may be others that come up. So if we're all in agreement with that, and we're all clear on that, and there's no questions, is there any questions? Are we all clear on what we're doing next meeting? Can you raise your hands if you are, please, so I've got some feedback. Right. Are we all happy with the way we're going? You can take your hands down now. Well, if that's the case, and there's no other business or any other questions, right, well, Tony.
Yeah, just to say, Chair, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think we've got to think of a new way of working and a way of making decisions rather rapidly. And as the as the tables are turned or the carpet's pulled beneath our feet, we've got to move with it, to keep with the time. So I think what you're suggesting, I think you've got our support there.
Well, thank you, Tony. Is everybody else happy with that then? Right, Lynn.
Yes.
Sorry. Lynn, have we got a date for the next meeting?
The next meeting's already scheduled, Chair. I think it's the 14th of December.
I'm sorry, Lynn, I didn't catch any of that. You got problems with your mic?
Chair Lynn confirmed that the next meeting is on the 14th of December.
14th of December, right.
Sorry, I think I disappeared for a minute. Yes, 14th of December.
Okay, right. Okay, well, thank you all then for your attendance.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Tom.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, please stop the stream. Sorry, I forgot all about the stream.